Welcome, everyone, to our video episode of End of Life Conversations for our paying subscribers. We are going to have an opportunity for Annalouiza and I just to have conversations about a number of different topics. And today we thought we'd start with one that's been kind of in front of both of us a lot. And that is, what kind of things are appropriate to say or do for people who are grieving, whether it's grieving for a loss of a parent or a friend or a loved one or a child or a pet, or even the loss of a job or the loss of a home, or lots of all the different kinds of things that can really upset your life and change your life and can cause grief. So we want to talk a little bit about the kinds of things that we have noticed that are helpful and the kinds of things that aren't, so that we can maybe give a little guidance, because we know how much we appreciate that guidance. And so hopefully it will be something useful for all of you.
That's right, Wakil. Thank you. And there's always a grief going on in somebody's life all around us, like for all the reasons that you just mentioned. So it's
Yeah,
a good practice to get ready to talk to your friend or your family and know what to say and how to approach it comfortably.
right. And it's can be uncomfortable. And that's okay too. Part of what I think we've also learned is be willing to be in the discomfort. Be
Hmm.
willing to be in acceptance of how it doesn't feel that good and you might mess it up. And to be
Yeah.
willing to also forgive yourself and and others, and
Hmm.
be gentle and say, oops, didn't do that very
That's
well,
right.
but I'll try and do it better next time.
That's right.
Or even
Well,
say that out loud to the person, I shouldn't, I realize that really wasn't appropriate and I'm sorry.
right. And it takes practice to do those things.
It
And
does.
I know as a culture, we don't want to be wrong and we don't want to mess up and we don't want to say, I'm sorry. And the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And the more attuned you are to those really subtle moments when things kind of get a little sideways with language or presence, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And, one thing I also think about is when people ask me, like, oh, I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say. Like, you know, what do you say when somebody dies or they're going through that? And it's really fascinating to me that we don't practice that either, right? Like
Right.
you can say something like, hello, I'm so glad to see you. Like that's the start.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And just being there, being present, being willing to be in acceptance of what's going on with people and just be present and listen. Compassionate listening is really kind
Hmm.
of the first thing. Start with that, right?
Right,
And
right,
then from that, there's a lot of things that can come out.
right. So can you explain compassionate listening to me, just because I want to know more about that?
Yeah. Well, compassionate listening is something I think you and I both heard a lot about when we were in seminary.
Hmm.
And I think it really is being willing to be totally present with a person without trying to fix anything, with
Hmm.
really being present to what's going on for them,
Hmm.
listening carefully to where they're bumping up against problems and trying to not fix anything, but to try to just say, well, let's talk more about that. What
Hmm.
else, how else would you think about that? And what else might you think about that might help that? Or what, kind of walking through what could be helpful for them. So that's part of it. And again, I think the biggest thing is just shutting up, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
we want to help, we want to be fixing it and we want to make it better. But often what people need is just to be heard.
Right. So just because I'm thinking this would be kind of fun to demonstrate compassionate listening, why don't we just do a little role play for like 60 seconds or so and just I would like for you to tell me something that you're going through and I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna just be like thinking I'm gonna try to fix it for you. So do you want to do that? And then we're gonna do the
Sure.
same thing and I will be a compassionate listener.
I love that. What a great idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of fun because we both had
Yeah.
experience on both ends of this.
Right. We both done it wrong.
Yes, we have.
Okay. So do you want to ask the question as if you were
Yeah. Yeah.
my buddy calling me up and saying hello?
Hi, Wakil. How are you? I haven't talked to you for so long. What's going on?
Well, right now, a lot of things are going on. I have a beloved wife who has a terminal diagnosis, which is really turned
Oh,
my world upside down, you
oh,
know?
oh no, oh no.
And so I'm trying to find ways to be there for her and really canceling everything else except for being a caregiver
Oh,
for her. Yeah.
oh,
And then
Wakil, I don't know. I feel so bad for you right now. I don't like, you shouldn't cancel anything for yourself. You should just totally like, I don't know. Like, are you talking to doctors? Are you talking to other people to help you?
yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people have said, don't forget about yourself. I think that is important.
Hmm.
But it's also, I find much more important for me right now to just be present with my wife. And so, and I've also heard a lot of different things come up with other people who have come to visit. Maybe we can talk about that some more
Yeah,
as we go on, what works and what doesn't. Right?
yeah. So, okay, so I just interrupted you. I told you what I thought you should be doing that was so much more important for anything. Like I didn't even I wasn't even curious about what actually is the illness or how you're taking it, right? So let's just start that again and just let me show you what compassionate listening will be.
I love that.
So,
Let's do it.
all right. Hi, Wakil. It's been such a long time since we've talked. How are you? What's going on?
Well, it's been a really tough time. My wife has been diagnosed with a terminal diagnosis, and I'm trying to figure out how we go forward with this whole new way of being in the world. It's kind of turned our world upside down, and so I'm basically just kind of canceling everything. I'm trying to be here for her totally and just be compassionate with her, care for her, take care of her, manage her medications, manage her appointments, manage her social calendar, manage her food intake, and also the things that come out the other way, and just all these different pieces, which is really many, many full-time jobs all at
Mhm.
once. So it's rough. It's a tough time.
Dear friend, sounds like so much that you have going on. I'm just really grateful that she has you in her life. Oh, I'm so sorry that this is something that's going on.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So, Wakil, what did it feel like?
Yeah, I think, you're right. The first time it was like, I was kind of not rocked back by this
Mm-hmm.
person hasn't heard a word I said, or isn't even listening. And something we've talked about before is this discernment is around when you're conversing with somebody in this place or conversing with somebody who is ill or somebody who's caring for somebody who's ill or somebody who's just lost any of those things we talked about earlier, thinking about who is the words that are going to come out, the words that you're about to say, stop and say, is this for me or is this for them? Will this be
Right,
useful for them to hear? Is
right,
this anything that will be good for them to hear? Or is it about what I need to be comfortable or what I need to fix things or whatever?
right.
So, yeah,
Well, and as you say that, what it occurs to me is sometimes in our culture, we want a connection, right? You're going through a really tough time, and the only way I know that I can connect with you is to try to remember in my own personal lived experience what could come close to being as tough as that, right?
yeah,
So interrupting you or waiting for you to finish, but then just kind of starting my own story about, well, I had an uncle years ago who actually had the same thing happening. So what that tells the person who is going through it in this moment is, all right, well, they know what this is like, and that's about it. I'm not offering to be there in support of you. I don't want to be curious about what's happening in your psyche and your soul and your everyday physicalness, right? So as a culture, we do that. We try
yeah,
to think about ways to connect, and there's nothing wrong with connecting. And yet, sometimes when a loved one is in the midst of a really tough time, it's not the connection that they need about the stories, it's the connection they need with your heart and your humanity.
exactly.
It's like
Yeah,
showing up and just saying, I see you, and I'm really sorry you're going through this, and I'm here for you.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. That's it. It's that simple. And
Hmm.
we're going to mess it up.
Hmm.
I think we have to keep coming back to that. If you mess up, just stop and say, I'm sorry. Let me start over again. Or even later, maybe,
Yeah.
or we also talked about if you hear somebody else messing up, or somebody comes, like I'll just give an example from our experience here, is that when Wendy was first ill, people sort of just assumed that was it. She's dying, right? And there was some rumors going around as part of it, and people with just total compassion and love and caring were sending her like goodbye messages, and it was very upsetting to her because she wasn't
Mhm.
leaving, she wasn't done, and so we talked about there's three different things. I found a great graphic about it that said there's palliative care, which is where we are now, just trying to make sure that her life is as comfortable and she has as good a quality of life as possible.
Mhm.
Uh, and there's, I don't know who's doing that, but anyway, there's long-term. I mean, there's end-of-life care where it's moving toward that, but you're still taking care of people that are still being cared for. And then there's hospice, and hospice is when it's pretty much
Mhm.
within a few months, maybe, of ending. And that's maybe the right time that might be the appropriate time to say, we've loved having you here, and we're
Yeah.
going to miss you, that kind of thing. Um, but that was one thing I think is important to note, that be aware of where the person is and be aware
Mhm.
of what's important for them to hear and what's important for you. And it's not important. Whatever's important to you doesn't matter.
Right.
It needs to be, you'd really need to be reflecting what will be useful for them to hear.
Right. And I also want to tell you that, you know, sometimes the person who hears somebody else's lived journey that's pretty tough, it's also okay to say, kind of, I love you. I hear what you're going through is really tough. And right now, I am not available to support you fully because I've got my stuff going on in my personal space,
Yeah.
but I'll check in with you when I can. Because I think that sometimes all of us get really busy with life, and sometimes we can barely come up for air. And saying that it's kind of hard right now to really be present to somebody who's going through a tough time. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it keeps you like connected to that person, and it also allows for that person to understand why you're not coming through for a call or a visit, right? Like it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
As long as we
Honesty.
communicate that, right? It's about open communication around what was going on in each of your lives.
Exactly. And being honest is much better than just ghosting somebody, which is what other people have done. We've seen that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Uh, One of Wendy's friends recently contacted her and said, "Yeah, I haven't done anything on the Caring Bridge site. I haven't reached out to you at all because I don't know what to say."
Hmm.
And I think that was a better response than just nothing. Just to at
Right.
least say, "I really feel at a loss here, but I
Yeah.
am thinking of you," and that's much better. So again, it's
Yeah.
those kind of considerations of what is useful for a person to hear. And
And also, it occurs to me years and years ago, I had a community member who lost a baby, like 3 days after baby was born. And, our community also had those folks who couldn't show up because of their own, like, just insecurity around were they going to say something wrong or a discomfort with being in the presence of somebody who's grieving so intensely,
yeah,
right? And what I realize now is that you show up with your presence if and when you can.
yeah,
No shame about sometimes not being able to. And you offer up a hand, whether it be like an emotional hand or a physical hand. You send some food. You don't ask. You just send them a little food just to see if they can
yeah,
get by. And and just be aware that it's really tough for all those folks. And supporting them the best way that you can
yeah,
is support.
yeah. Yeah, we were looking at an article about just buy them some groceries or
Hmm.
send them a meal card or
Hmm.
uh, anything like that that can be, and or go mow their lawn, or just
Right.
be there and be helpful without asking somebody what they need in that space is useless because most of them, many cases, and many times,
Right.
especially something like that, they have no idea what they need. They just want to stare off into space and wonder what the
Yeah.
heck happened, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a really good point, Wakil. It's just supporting in the subtleness of it all, right? Like
Mhm.
understanding that food needs to be taken care of, a dog may need to be walked,
Yeah.
mail may actually be needed to be collected, and just, like what those little things, it's not a what do you need kind of question. It's I'm going to come over and I'm going to water your garden. You don't have to
Hmm.
worry about that. Or I'll fill your bird feeders. Or, you
Yeah.
know, um, there was a conference I went to years ago about around Alzheimer's, and they said oftentimes the caregiver to somebody who's caregiving a person with Alzheimer's dementia, they need a break.
Yeah.
They literally need to have like a 30-minute walk and, showing up and saying, "Hey, I will be here for the next hour. I'd like you to just get out the door, sit outside in the car if you want, but
Yeah.
just you don't have to do the emotional lifting right now." And
Yeah.
people appreciate that. People appreciate,
Absolutely.
like taking care of little ones if there's been a death in the family. Like
Hmm.
just show up.
Yeah. And I think it is also valuable to not assume anything. I'll just
That
say
too.
we had somebody come over with a huge bag full of groceries that we didn't eat. There
Mm,
was nothing we'd ever eat. And so maybe in that case, again, done with compassion and love and no putting that person down. It's beautiful that they would do that. But maybe come in with a bag of groceries and say, here's some things I bought. Would this be useful for you or would it not? And so, can I help you put it in the refrigerator or whatever? Or would you like me to take it home because you don't
yeah.
want it? That's and
Right.
and same kind of thing with mowing the lawn or feeding walking the dog. Or I know when my mom was taking care of my dad and he had dementia, the most important thing I did for them was show up and give my mom an evening off. Like you
Hmm.
said, just giving her a time to be away from that 24/7 caregiving of somebody who was really needy
Yeah.
24/7. So, and especially, yeah, people with dementia or people with Alzheimer's, they can be very, very needy and very hard to be around. And they can be angry, they can be violent.
Hmm.
So anything you can do to give somebody a break from that, that's a really good point.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it was just occurring to me too, like caregiving, when somebody's really ill, and the food piece, depending on the type of illness and depending on the community that that person has, instead of groceries that need to be prepared,
Mhm.
it's a vegetable plate and a couple sodas and some sparkly water, whatever, because sometimes preparing food in that time is really hard too.
Yeah,
You just, if you show up with flowers, show up with the vase and the flowers already done. Like
right,
that was a really French thing that I learned. You don't offer a gift that requires the recipient to have to go out and do more work,
right.
right?
Yeah, good point.
So,
Yeah.
make some sandwiches and cut them up and have them ready to like offer up to other people who are visiting. But
Yeah,
don't give them random things that, you don't know whether or not they're going to have time or energy to actually prepare something from those
yeah.
items.
I love that. That's a really good point.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into the idea of what doesn't work. What is not helpful.
Hmm.
And we talked a little bit about, not trying to fix things and being willing
Hmm.
to be present with what is. The other thing we found that wasn't helpful was people trying to give us advice
Hmm.
about, the shark's tooth or whatever, the magnets or,
Medicine,
yeah, the
right?
magnets, yeah, or we're going to send you. I mean, that's not really a good one because we do appreciate people sending their prayers, or healing or whatever. But and in general, that's again, it's one of those things you can ask. You can say, "Would you like me to send healing prayers your way, or have you in
Hmm.
a healing circle that we're doing, or not?"
Right.
And some people and so that's again being considerate of the
Hmm.
person and finding out what really is going to be helpful for them in this time and what's not, and being willing to
Right.
hear that no, that's not helpful at all. I don't want to hear anything about it. um,
Hmm.
so that's come up several times.
I think that that's a really important piece for all of us to always think about, especially in this day and age when there's so much information and it's so easy to just transmit like, all kinds of stuff into people's messages.
Right.
It's a lot. I learned this last week. My daughter tracks COVID, and we do a lot of COVID mitigation even now because it's really important for her to help out and be supportive of disabled folks. And what I am doing now, there are friends in my circle who talk about it with me, and they're a little worried about it, but they don't want to really like know too much. But
Right.
what I'm doing now is like, hey, like COVID numbers are up. You're going to a wedding this weekend. Would you like to have a link to what's going on and how to best take care of yourself as you're traveling? And when they say, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing, I can send it forward, right?
Yeah.
But if I don't hear anything, it does not give me reason to send it out. So if you have somebody in your life who's going through a really tough time with an illness or a death, or they're just in grief, they're in grief
Yeah.
mode, right? Like
Yeah.
to send them information about how it's going to help them get out of this or get better or miracle drug it, it's not helpful for that person.
Yeah.
Asking, maybe they will be curious. Maybe 1 out of 10 people are like, yes, send me that information about shark, whatever, you know? Uh, and yes, please, put me in your prayer circle, but ask first.
Yeah.
That is a
Exactly.
really important component to this process.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one of the things that I've heard that doesn't help is with pets. People will go, well, you can get another dog. That's
Mm-hmm.
one I've heard that's really inappropriate and upsetting
Mm-hmm.
in most cases. Is not, and I've even heard that with kids. Well, you could have another baby.
Right.
Which is whoa. I mean, that's like never do that. That is like the
Yeah.
worst possible thing, and very painful for people to hear. Nobody wants to hear that in
Mm-hmm.
their grief.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, I mean, that's kind of that's kind of a way out there. But the fact that I've actually heard that said
Mm-hmm.
just means that we maybe need to think about it. We need to, again,
Mm-hmm.
consider that's not appropriate and really doesn't help and actually hurts.
Right. Well, and something similar to that was when my sister died. My sister lived for 47 years with spina bifida and was in a wheelchair, and her life be very different from most able-bodied people. And a few folks were like, well, she's in a better place now. She's in
Mm-hmm.
heaven and can run and do whatever. And it was such a strange assumption, right? On so many
Yeah.
levels. Saying that is not helpful for somebody like myself or my sister. My sister was like, like she would not have appreciated that either.
Right.
So, feel like saying like people should check their words, but check your words.
Yeah.
Just be
Yeah. And
careful.
don't make assumptions. I
Don't
mean,
make assumptions.
people have different beliefs, different
Hmm.
spiritual beliefs, different ways of thinking about what's going to happen when they die or what happened
Hmm.
to their loved one. Don't make assumptions like that. Like say, oh, they'll be happier now, or oh, you'll see them again when you go to heaven.
Right.
Some people don't have any sense of that. Some people think when it's over, and that
Hmm.
person's gone. I'll never see them again, and I'm grieving that.
Hmm.
I'm living that loss, and for you to say that is just not appropriate. So again,
Right.
it's just being aware and thoughtful,
Hmm.
and forgiveness of yourself and others when you mess it up. I
Right.
want to keep saying that because that's
That's part of it.
yeah.
Absolutely. And, I just had a thought about when I was working in hospice, and they really admonished you from saying, I'm so sorry for your loss when
Mm,
somebody had just passed, because we don't know that family story, right?
yeah.
Sometimes, there's a lot of reasons why people are relieved that that other person has passed. And
Hmm.
saying that is not helpful.
Mm,
But again, saying, I am really sorry that you're going through this.
yeah.
That's what it is. It's like
Yeah.
your lived experience of a loss is what we're attending to in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And ask them, what are you feeling right now? Or
Yeah.
what would you like? What would be helpful? I
Hmm.
think one of the best responses I got was from our good friend, one of our first interviews, Bodie, who said, wow, that's big. That was all he said.
Mm-hmm.
That's big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what it is. It's big,
Mm-hmm.
and it's upsetting, and it's hard, and or that's it's hard. That's hard, and just knowing that that you're present, you notice that that's going to be tough, and you don't have to say anything else. You don't have to do
Right.
anything else
Yeah.
except for
And
maybe what
listen.
would be helpful.
Right. And listen.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
listen. And maybe the what could be helpful may not land you anywhere, but you've set it out, and then you can just wait a while, and then when you hear like there's a need, you can show up and just do it and
yeah.
not worry about it, right? Yeah.
Right. Just be paying attention and checking back. I think that's something you mentioned earlier. If you can't do it, if your place, you're not in a good place right now, even if you are and you go help, check back because things change. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know our journey right now it's actually, my wife's in great space right now. She's doing really well, but tomorrow it could be worse. We're doing, and things can change very quickly, for better or worse. So don't make any assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
and check back and do the same thing you started with. Like, where are you now? How can I be of service to
Yeah.
you?
Right. So it sounds like everything that we have talked about is always about compassionate listening
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just showing up in the way that you can. There's
yeah,
no expectation. Be honest about what you can do.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah. And listening and checking in, making sure what you're doing is about what would be useful and helpful for them and not you.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not something you need to take care of your discomfort, but also I think there's also the realization that it is uncomfortable. And so there's also that place of being willing to be in acceptance of discomfort. Like, okay, this
Mm,
isn't comfortable, but I'm going to be present for you, even though I'm not comfortable. And I'm not going to
right,
try to fix my discomfort by
right.
telling you how to fix it, or by not showing up or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
I like
lot
that.
to think about, So
Well, it's a lot, and it's a practice.
it
It's a
is.
practice because people, like we started out this conversation, there are losses that occur to all of us on a daily basis. And
Mhm.
when we have a friend or a neighbor or a relative and they're going through, the loss of their wallet, that too, like it's big for that person
Yeah,
in that moment.
yeah,
I'm really sorry you're
absolutely.
going through that. Is there anything I can do for you?
Yeah,
I'll check back and see what's going on. That's, right there.
yeah, yeah. That's a good start, and it's all we can do sometimes. And
That's right.
again, just being accepting of, this is how much I can do right now, and I love you and I care about you and I'm here for you. That might be all you need.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, well, we will do more of these. We'll be
Yes.
talking about things like preparation for end of life, and the different things you can do to prepare. We've got a lot of ideas. If you have any ideas, we'd love to hear from you. And we also have our free End of Life Conversations podcast continuing. We're glad to have you join us for that. And we hope that you will tell all your friends and join us again. Thanks
Yes.
for
Thank you so
being here.
much.
See you
Adios.
again next time. Bye.